My name is Jacques. I'm going to do that video to show you how to create virtual PC using Hyper-V. Hyper-V is a hypervisor created by Microsoft. It is available in most of Microsoft Windows Pro, Windows Education, and Windows Enterprise. In order to create a virtual computer, you need to have a host computer because you create virtual PC from a host PC. Second, you need to have what they call a hypervisor. The hypervisor is the technology that manages the hardware that allows the virtual PC that you create to interact with the hardware of the host PC. I said first, you need to have a host PC, and second, you need to have a hypervisor. The hypervisor is the program that's going to allow you to create the virtual PC. Now, after you have the hypervisor, you need to have the guest operating system that you're going to install in your virtual PC. The beauty of having virtual PC, it is because virtual PC allow you to install many operating systems in a single PC. The fact that we call it virtualization, virtual PC, virtual server, that does not mean those virtual PC or virtual server you will create will not use the hardware component of your host PC. For that reason, when you are planning to create virtual PC, you need to have hardware that can support all of the virtual PCs. To install Windows 10 64-bit in a computer, you need to have at least 2 GB memory. You need to have at least 20 gig of disk space available in the hard drive. For every virtual PC you're going to create, I would advise that you have at least 2 GB RAM for that virtual PC you're going to create. So that means if you want to create 2 virtual PC, you look to have at least 8 GB RAM, so you can allocate 2 GB to each of those virtual PC and still have 4 GB to run your host PC. So the amount of virtual PC you can create in a computer will depend of the capacity of that host PC. The other thing you need to know, you need to have a CPU that support virtualization. Not every CPU support virtualization. After this presentation, I expect you to use your computer at home or the computer at your office to create a virtual PC.
In this presentation, I'm going to show you how to create virtual machine using Microsoft Hyper-V. This is an application that is included in all Windows Edition Pro, Education, and Enterprise. Although this application is integrated in Windows operating system, it is not activated automatically that you install Windows. You have to go to Windows, turn on this feature if you want to use it. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to turn Windows feature on and off. I'm going to type Hyper-V. When I type Hyper-V, if you can look at right here on the left hand side of the screen where I put the cursor, you see turn Windows feature on or off. So I'm going to click on that link because what I want to do is to locate Hyper-V and all the applications that I need to create and manage my virtual machine. I'm going to put all of them on. The first one right here is Hyper-V. I highlight Hyper-V and I put a check mark in front of it. I'm going to look for Microsoft Hypervisor Platform. This is one of the applications that I will need to create and manage my virtual machine. Now, I see here Virtual Machine Platform. I click on it, and right here, I see Windows Hypervisor Platform, and I click on it. So I select those three applications, and I click OK. Now, Windows will install those applications. So now, after I do that, I'm going to type Hyper-V again, and at this time, I'm going to click on Hyper-V Manager because this is the program that will allow me to create those virtual machines. Now, when I click on the Hyper-V, if you look at in the right hand of the screen, you're going to see New. This is where I'm going to click to create my virtual machine. So what do I need for my virtual machine? First, I need to allocate RAM for my virtual machine. Second, I need to allocate drive space for my virtual machine. Then I will need to install the guest operating system I'm going to run on my virtual machine. So although a virtual machine doesn't have physical component, but in order to create a virtual machine, you need to have a host computer. That host computer must have a multi-core processor that support virtual machine. So if the CPU does not support virtualization, you will not be able to create virtual machine in that computer. Now, the host machine is supposed to have a lot of RAM because although you're going to create a virtual machine, you need to allocate RAM for your virtual machine. If you're going to install a 32-bit operating system, you need at least 1 GB RAM for your virtual machine. If you're going to install a 64-bit operating system, you will need at least 2 GB RAM in that computer. For drive space, it is recommended that you have at least 16 GB drive space for 32-bit operating system and 20 GB drive space for 64-bit operating system. Now, we're going to go back. We click on New. And when you click on New, as you can see, you see there are three options. The option that you need is virtual machine. You click on virtual machine. Now, you are ready to allocate component for your virtual machine. the hypervisor asked me to assign a name to my virtual machine. Let me call it training, because I'm creating this machine for the purpose of showing you how to create a virtual machine. I could give any name that I choose, but I choose training and I click next. Now, as you can see, the hypervisor asked me if I want to create a generation 1 or if I want to create a generation 2. So if I want to create a virtual machine to run only 64-bit operating system, I will have to choose generation 2. However, most of the time, you create a virtual machine because the newest operating system you have in your computer is not compatible with some legacy software that you have. We call legacy software any old software that was designed for an older operating system. So at this point, it is recommended that you choose generation 1. But if the operating system you plan to install in your virtual machine is a 64-bit operating system, you could have choose generation 2. But for my purpose, I'm going to choose generation 1 because I plan to install a Windows Vista 32-bit in that new virtual machine I'm going to create. So I click next. Now, the hypervisor asks me how much RAM you want to allocate for your virtual machine. So since I'm going to install a 32-bit operating system, let me allocate 2 GB RAM in this machine. 124 megabyte is 1 GB, so 248 megabyte will be 2 GB. So I just assign 2048 megabyte for my virtual machine. That means my virtual machine will have 2 GB available. So I finished to allocate memory for my virtual machine. That 2 GB will be subtracted from my host machine. Any component that I use for my virtual machine will be subtracted from my host machine. Now, the hypervisor said if I want to connect my virtual machine, for now I'm going to say no, I don't want to connect my virtual machine, and I click next. So now the hypervisor asked me how much drive space you want to allocate for your virtual machine. They said you can allocate from 127 and a maximum of 64 terabyte. So my host machine does not have that much drive space to assign. So since I need only 16 gigabyte to install my 32-bit operating system, so this virtual machine that I'm creating, I'm doing that only for the purpose of teaching you how to create virtual machine in the host computer. So it doesn't matter, I can choose to assign only 50 gigabyte. However, if I want to create a virtual machine to run program, to run software, to do work, I will have to assign more drive space to my virtual machine. Right now, what I do, I assign only as much that I need to install my guest operating system. So now I give a name to my virtual machine. I allocate memory to my virtual machine. I allocate drive space to my virtual machine. So I'm ready to create my virtual machine. So when I finish to create my virtual machine, the only thing left will be installing a operating system. I'm not going to install an operating system right now, but let me show you what you will do. What you will do at this point is to insert the operating system you want to install in the DVD-ROM in your laptop or your computer, and you click here, install operating system from a bootable CD or DVD. So the CD or the DVD that have your operating system, you will place it in the computer and you are ready to install your operating system. So right now, I finished to create my machine. Now I said finish, I finished to create my virtual machine. Now, inside that computer, I have a new machine. If you look at here, I have a machine named training machine, and I have a machine named training, and I have another one named Jack. That means I have 3 computers running in that host computer. Altogether, I have 4 computers, 1 physical and 3 virtual, and each of them is running a different operating system. Now, what I can do here, if you want to put that machine on, when you finish to create the machine is off. So once you put that machine on, the operating system will start automatically, and you can follow the screen to install the guest operating system in your new machine. Suppose I said, I don't want that server anymore. The only thing I have to do is to go to highlight the server. Let me highlight this server, and I say, I go to cancel, I go to select action, and I go down here, I click delete, and I delete that computer. I can go here, I don't want this anymore. I go to action, and I go to delete, and I delete that computer. This is how easy it is to create a virtual machine. But you don't have to recycle. You don't have to break it down when you don't need it. You just go and delete it. So this is the reason why in the IT industry, we like to work with virtual server as long as we have a backup. If the server has any problem, we just delete the server and create another one. There is another system named multi-boot that you can use to install many operating systems in a computer. But the difference between virtualization and multi-boot, if you install many operating systems in a single computer, if you use the multi-boot technology, you will be able to use one or the other operating system. So that means if you install Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 10 in a computer, you can select to use one of them. However, if you create virtual machine, you can run all the operating system at the same time in that single computer. That means if I want to use a software that is compatible with Windows Vista, I can put my Windows Vista computer on and use that software. If I want to use a program that is compatible with Linux, I can put my virtual machine that have Linux operating system installed on it and use that software, all of them running at the same time. For that reason, you need a computer that have a multi-core processor, because each of those virtual PC will need 1 or 2 core processor to run. Each of those virtual PC will need RAM to run. Each of those virtual PC will need drive space to run, because you can run all of them at the same time. So it is a very important technology that I want all of you to understand. This is the end of the presentation, and I want you to practice it if you have a computer that have the capacity to perform such a task.